Welcome back to the show. I'm your host Kyle, and I'm going to be talking about Here Be Dragons, a new Australian film which I believe has just been released on DVD. Now, it's quite a quite a hard hitting little movie. It's taking on kind of issues with international and long lasting repercussions. It's about the Bosnian War, and well, for anyone who doesn't know, 1992 to 1995 saw the armed conflict that is known as the Bosnian War. Now, it was the largest European conflict since World War II, and I mean, the details of which would be impossible for me to recount here, but regardless, it saw a horrific series of atrocities and battles and massacres and ethnic cleansings, which led to over 100,000 deaths and countless more ruined lives. Now, in the middle of this chaos in 1993, this being the movie now, United Nations peacekeepers attempt to avoid carnage as much as possible. And a young, fresh faced recruit named David Locke, played by Nathan Clark Sapsford, falls in love with a local Bosnian girl. But during a prisoner slash hostage exchange, the reality of this war hits him hard. It's revealed that an evil paramilitary commander named Ivan Novak, played by Vladimir Jovic, ordered the extermination of this girl's whole family, just one family amongst countless others. Traumatized by this incident, but unable to take his revenge, Locke becomes a destroyed man overnight. Now, 25 years later, and Locke has dedicated his entire life to investigating war criminals and bringing them to justice at the World Court in The Hague, the Netherlands, the court that the United Nations have. Now, as his colleagues pat themselves on the back for a job well done as far as trying war criminals from the Bosnian War, all Locke can think about are the villains who got away. Now, as far as the world knows, Novak died of bowel cancer years ago, escaping punishment. But just then, a ghost from the past reveals that perhaps Novak is still alive. Now he's a respected therapist known as Jovan Petrovic, now played by Slobodan Bestic. Uh, the indifference of his colleagues doesn't deter Locke as he sets off to Serbia to see if this is, in fact, his Novak. And in doing so, perhaps finally he's able to slay the dragon which has haunted his dreams for the past quarter of a century. Now, Aussie filmmaker Alastair Newton Brown has crafted a distinctly international political thriller in Here Be Dragons. Now, he deals with long term ramifications of a conflict which, unfortunately, many people have forgotten about in the time since. However, this film explores the deep seated traumas experienced to this day by those affected by war and mankind's general cruelty. Now, Here Be Dragons takes an interesting look at these issues in different ways that its characters deal with their past. Some, like Locke, are unable to forget it and they seek retribution many, many years later, while others attempt to reinvent themselves and start a new life free from the stigma of their past actions. But the question is raised, is redemption even possible when someone's life has been destroyed, or more interestingly, when they themselves have been responsible for such vile actions? Is it even possible for somebody to redeem themselves after that? Now, this film doesn't seek to provide any simple answers to these questions. It rather just invites the viewer to think about them for themselves. And as a clashing of wills grows between Locke and Petrovic, the idea of a simple black and white quote unquote justice is challenged, what do your morals tell you about whether a person is past all forgiveness, or whether you need to just move on for your own sake, or the sake of your own sanity? The film is carried by two masterful performances by Bestick and Sapsford, and it's a pity that they don't really get a bit more time to play off of each other. The pain that Locke feels is really evident on Sapsford's face from the start of the film to the end. But we get little more than a dream sequence to really flesh out his PTSD. And also, the eventual showdown between the two men is weakened somewhat by there just not being quite enough time to build a true connection between these two older men who have been shaped by what has happened to them or what they have done in the past. I think they only have maybe one or two scenes together before basically they have their final showdown, and yeah, it's just a little disappointing. But this is still a fascinating picture. It's shot entirely against the city of Belgrade, Serbia. Now, I believe in the interview that David did with Nathan Clark Sapsford, Nathan actually said that Belgrade is often a shooting location for other Western films, because it generally just depicts a generic Eastern European setting. But here, the director of photography, Mark Winden, is allowed to shoot Belgrade as Belgrade, and as it's portrayed as itself, he's able to show the landmarks, and it provides a cold, lonely, yet really beautifully atmospheric backdrop for this story of revenge and yeah, just personal trauma. Now, this is really it's a tense political thriller which has become even more timely since filming, with violent conflicts raging throughout Europe. Again, as Sapsford said in the interview, they filmed this before COVID, so this happened before the most recent Russia Ukraine conflicts, or the most recent Israel or Palestine Hamas situations. So this movie has kind of only become more and more relevant since being filmed, and I still wish that the film were a little longer to allow for more in-depth character development. But despite that, I think Here Be Dragons is recommended as a poignant story, well acted and impeccably shot. So I'm going to actually give this 4 stars out of 5. I quite enjoyed it, and really, as an Aussie film, it's something. Well, it's something very different than what you usually see from Australian cinema. As I say, it's quite an much more of an international film than an Aussie film. But yeah, it's quite an interesting thing, quite an interesting movie. So 4 out of 5 from me, and yeah, I highly recommend you guys check it out.